Okay, so this is chapter 1, which is about what is the industry organizations, why we study this course, and how we do in the discourse. Okay, so in short, I called IO this, which means the industry organizations. So first, we want to ask what is the industry organization we have to study this course. So IO is all about understanding how business work in the markets. Okay, so we will figure out why companies do what they do. So we will look at all sort of business decisions, like how companies set the prices, why they join the forces, and how they come up with new products. Okay, that's the whole range of the business issues in the real world. So in this course, so we will look at how companies interact with each others. So we have to focus on the strategic view of how firms interact. So it is like the studying big game where every company is trying to win. Okay. Next, let's talk about how we study this I/O. First, we will use something called game theory. Have you heard of this game theory? So this helps us to understand how companies make the decisions, where they have to think about what other companies might do. Okay, that they will consider the other people's strategies. So you should find very optimized decisions based on the called net equilibrium. Okay, so we focus on the strategics and the interactions. Next, we will construct a model in IO. So there are like the simplified version of a real world, which is very complicated, right? So it helps us understand complicated things more easily. Okay. So we then, after setting up the model, we can test our ideas in the real world. So that is the empirical analysis. Okay, so we will look at the real data to see if what we thought would happen actually does happen. So for example, we might look at whether bigger companies can make the things more cheaply, or how advertising affects what people buy, right? But why do we study IO? Well, for a long time, people have been worried about companies getting too powerful, which means that they have a very great market power. Okay? In other words, the market power means that it is ability to change the given price in the market. Okay? So if you have a market power, you can change the price. So that is the higher market power. So Adam Smith, a famous old economist, was concerned about this. He warned that uh, if the companies get too big and powerful, so which is called this is monopoly, they might not produce enough good and charge too much for them. So in the microeconomics course, you might study about these kinds of monopoly, right? Monopoly usually set a higher price and made of a less quantity, right? So it makes the markets very efficient allocation, right? So this words lead to the law called Sherman Anti-Law, okay, and Antitrust Act in 1890. So this law says the companies cannot work together to control the prices, and they cannot try to become the only seller in a market. Okay, let's look more closely at the laws that shape industry organizations. The Sherman Act, 1890, it is the starting point where they prevent the market power. So this act says the companies cannot make the agreements that limited the trade. It also says it is illegal to try to become a monopoly. In addition, in 1914, they made another law called Creighton Act. This law tries to stop the monopolies before they even start. It makes a certain business practice illegal if they might reduce the competitions or create a monopoly. They set up the groups called Federal Trade Commissions. These groups is to make sure the companies follows these rules. But what I want to explain is that this part, it is not as simple as saying big companies are bad. The law recognizes that sometimes companies get big because they are really good at what they do. What is not allowed is using your size to unfairly squash competitions. Now, let's talk about something called Structured Conduct Performance Model. This is key idea in I/O. This model says that the markets can range from having lots of competitions to having just one big company. The closer a market is being the monopoly, the worse it usually is for consumers. Okay, so usually they make some dead will lose. Okay, have you ever heard of dead will lose? Dead will lose is that the area where no one take it. So dead will lose means that if you have dead will lose in the society, the resource allocation is inefficient, right? So in industry organization, we will try to understand how the structure of a market affect how companies behave and how that behavior affect the things like prices and product quality. So this structure conduct performance model help us understand how the basic setup of the market influences what companies do and how that affects everyone else. So, as people studies IOMO, they came up with different ideas about how markets works. So there are two groups. One is a Chicago school, another one is post-Chicago school. So one group called the Chicago school said that sometimes having a big, powerful, and company is not always bad. So they might be big because they are really good at what they do. They also said that even if they are only one big company in the market, the possibility that new companies might enter can keep the big companies from misbehaving. There's another group called the Post-Chicago School. They said that it's not as simple, that they use the game theory in order to show that sometimes even the threat of the new companies is not enough to keep the big companies in the check. So they say we need to carefully study each situations in order to figure out what to do. So these different ideas have helped us to understand markets better. Okay, so finally, we have what we called new industry organizations. So this combines ideas from different schools, which is the Chicago School and the Post-Chicago School of Thought. These kinds of new I/O, we should develop the theory before making policies. It also looks at how the structure of market affect how companies behave. Okay. So for example, think about how farmers, gas stations, and computer makers, and drugs companies all set prices differently. Because this is because their markets work differently. Okay, so the modern I/O is all about studying markets where competition is not perfect and where companies have to think strategically about what other companies might do. So we still use the I/O in order to help make the laws about competitions, but we are also interested in finding ways for companies to solve the problems in the market on their own. So in the end, IO gives us tools to understand why companies do what they do, how the structure of markets affect this, and what outcomes we can expect. So this is important not just for the people making law, but for everyone who wants to understand how our economy works. So in order to understand this kind of structure, the next chapter will study about perfectly competitive market and what is a monopoly. Okay, so we will just wrap up the principal part, okay, of the microeconomics. Okay, thank you.